Hey everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the American Bar Guy podcast. This time we wanted to cross over into a segment called Black Letters in Law. Now, Black Letters in Law is normally on the Bipartisan Times podcast. And for anybody out there that's not familiar with that term or segment, typically it's where we divulge into the issues affecting and within minority communities in order to explore possible solutions, as well as get our voices heard and opinions on various issues affecting minority communities. This time, because of what's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic, I felt as though I couldn't separate the issues that I wanted to talk about. And so I wanted to bring them on the American Bar Guy podcast and simultaneously have them on Bipartisan Times. But given this crisis that we're in, this worldwide pandemic, I've been reflecting as a Black bisexual man about my life, about my businesses, about the people in my life, about my goals. And what I realize is that we all should be at a point right now where we have been reflecting as a society. And so I realize I'm not the only one experiencing many of the things that I have and that I do. And I wanted to talk about these issues. I wanted to dig deep and really kind of say things and encourage you to engage with me on various topics that I think that we all really need to explore. And so, last week we talked about doing better as a civilization. We encouraged everyone, worldwide to come together and do better to help fight this thing. And this time I want to talk to my Black people. I feel as though the message is this: we, as a people, as a community, need to band together, because we are the ones often working these, essential jobs. So we're giving putting our lives at risk. And we don't band together. There's a lot to unpack there, a whole lot. We oftentimes are rallied or centered around the church. We have always flocked to the church, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not here to knock anyone or take anyone's faith away or make them second guess what they believe. But what I'm saying is that we don't even have the guidance as a people, because all the churches are so divided, and you're getting this and that from this one, but not this piece from that one. And it sets us back as a people in society. We don't have a lot of opportunities given to us. There's various movies out there, and documentaries and stories and articles about people of color not measuring up when it comes to opportunities in the marketplace, or buying homes or just jobs. That's not something new. That's not something that just popped up during the course of my lifetime. It's always been. When you look at our community and you compare it to other communities, for instance, let's take Caucasians, white people. You got the police forces, which are often predominantly white. Or you got the legal community, which is predominantly white, often filled with privileged individuals. You got politics, Congress, the media, with a few Black congressional correspondents and commentators like Abby Phillip and Angela Rye or Vea Jones. Fields that are predominantly white, and we try to infiltrate. Or the biggest one is Hollywood. And it's filled with a lack of diversity. You look at the Oscars, and they had the whole Oscar so white movement. Actors like Viola Davis and Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Tracy Ellis Ross are underpaid, given an opportunity to be within a predominantly white field, taking what they can, making movie magic, like Angela Bassett, who should have got her Oscar a long time ago, or even Jussie Smollett. The way the Fraternal Order of the Police were protesting to get this guy indicted after the charges were dropped for a non-violent offense. Whether you think it was wrong or not, it was non-violent, and you had a news conference being held by a Fraternal Order Police, a predominantly white organization, all supporting each other to attack this black man. But you have Hispanic people, looking out for one another. You got Jewish people who built their community centers and schools, hospitals and banks. I spent time I went to grad school in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I lived out there for almost 4 years. And my tenure out there was very, very difficult. Trying to find a place to fit in with my own people and other cultures, natives and Hispanic people, was very difficult. Opportunities being given to other Hispanic people or people who, were from their same community. But when it came to being African American, a black person, we had like 4 different churches with like a 4% total population of the whole state. You had everybody segregated. You had everybody competing against each other. I got really, really, really frustrated. I love New Mexico, I do, but it was very difficult for me because I was passed over many times by people who had less than me when it came to qualifications. And I knew this because after going on countless interviews, I would always go back and I would ask them, in the candidate you selected, what qualifications did they have that you were looking for? So if an opportunity comes open again, maybe I can get some of that experience and I'll be more eligible. Many times they couldn't give me a straight answer. Sometimes they would say things like, oh, they had experience with kids. And I'd dig a little deeper and I'd ask, well, what type of experience with kids? They couldn't specify. Say, oh, well, she worked in an office environment. No, I was at the time working on my master's degree in public administration. My availability was anytime, Monday through Friday, even weekends, from 8 to 5, because my courses, and if anyone's been to grad school, your courses are often in the evening. So my courses would be from 7 to 9, or 8 to 10, or 6 to whatever. So I was available. And sometimes I got beat up by undergrads who were enrolled in class during those prime work hours. Even the UNM Foundation, I slam dunked that interview, called up some topics and issues that I had no idea that the office was actually working on. Gave examples of what things that I was doing within my program, but yet and still they picked an undergrad. I remember another incident in New Mexico where a fellowship had came down, and it was given to a professor who was in the Office of African American Affairs to do a research project where he wanted to document all the successful black people that had came out of his hometown, New Mexico. It was a small little town. I believe it was Clovis, New Mexico. And he had indicated that all of these, black people who were minorities in this small town had gone off and done some pretty astounding things. And I think somebody had gone and was recruited in the NFL, and a couple people became doctors and lawyers and engineers. And so the university offered him a fellowship to do the research. Now, they wanted it to be given to a black student. It just seemed appropriate because it was a fellowship within the Office of African American Affairs. And so I applied with 3 other people. And I remember getting word back that of all the candidates, that I did the best for the interview and that my degree program was targeted to handle the type of research that was going to come that way. Qualitative Spear, the time we were going to be working with. The day before he had to pick somebody for the fellowship opportunity, didn't hear back, and so I said, okay, I did what I normally do and said, well, who got it? Who beat me? And it turns out that the individual that actually receive the fellowship was a black man who had just kind of wrapped up his undergraduate degree that year. And he went, and it was a number of things you had to do to actually become an applicant, like submit your transcripts, state that you were in school, going full-time, and some other stuff. And the individual had gone ahead and falsified a transcript indicating that he was in my actual degree program. And he was selected. And ultimately, I remember finding out about it, and another person who was like, you didn't get it, was very surprised. Like, you didn't get it? And they kind of worked with the professor, and they were very surprised. And they said, oh, such and such got it. He says he's in your program. And I'm like, I've been in this program now for well over a year and a half. I've never seen him. He's not in my program at all. In fact, he's an undergrad. And the individual went ahead and got the fellowship. And right before, I think it was like a couple hours before the deadline approached, I talked to the professor and said, hey, you selected somebody who actually is not in this program at all. They falsified their documents. What I understand, they're not in my degree program. I know everybody who's in my program. And he kind of, said, well, I'll get back with you. I didn't hear back from this man until about 4 or 5 months later, when he called me, indicating that I was right, and that individual had taken the $7,500, didn't do any research at all, and he was now at a loss because the university had found out that the individual was not a student admitted and enrolled in my graduate program that he had, said that he was. So he wanted to offer me the other half of the fellowship in order to make sure that the funds wouldn't get pulled away. And this goes to my point that as a people, we are often trying to compete against each other. And this particular individual stole an opportunity from me in school, in grad school, while he was an undergrad, in order to get some money. As I stated, as a people, we have got to do better. I believe that the professor had chose the individual after being warned that he was not a student and that he had made up these documents to get the fellowship. He went with him anyway, because it later was revealed to me that because of my sexuality, professor perceived me as being gay, and the professor was one of those black ministers in one of those few churches in Albuquerque I told you about, and he took issue with me because of who I am. He perceived me as being gay, and so he'd rather take the chances with this other individual and give him the opportunity rather than go with the most qualified individual. And to make matters worse, and I'm not trying to knock anybody that's a past felon, but this individual was a felon. It was widespread knowledge that this individual had served a number of years in prison. He was an older man. He had finally got out, and he was supposed to be, which he did, pursue his undergraduate degree. But the opportunity came down for the fellowship, and he just falsified documents in order to get the money. And the professor rather give a felon who he knew was lying a chance than the most qualified individual. Another black man, but this guy is bisexual. My point is that we don't have enough opportunities that are being created for us. And even within our own communities, we lack, a compassion or just a collaboration or togetherness. But you don't see that often in other minority communities. Tyler Perry said something not too long ago. He said, they wouldn't give me a seat at the table, so I went and built my own table. And it was such a powerful statement. I believe he delivered it when his acceptance, he was getting some sort of award. I think that's awesome. I think that we as a community need to think like that. We don't have, MLK or Malcolm X. We don't have anybody out here who is rallying us together, as a people. We're still very much so divided. We got labels that are normally within the hip-hop industry or do give us an opportunity, but that's just one small piece or segment. And then you got people that cross over into the mainstream. Say, for instance, let's talk about Fantasia. I love Fantasia. I freaking love Fantasia. And she sings gospel, but she also sings, secular music. She does her thing. And it's almost like there's this discordance between having a faith and then having to compete and create a life for yourself. Because I know a lot of people who are very talented, vocally. And the first time they get an opportunity to release an album or work on something that is not gospel, you got people within the black community saying, that's the devil's music. You need to be thinking about Jesus. Oh, I don't support that. And I don't know where this logic comes from, but this is going to hold us back. And that's just a music piece. We have to create opportunities for our people. And I had a friend, I was in law school. I had a friend of mine who had told me, brilliant mind. She was a Cameroonian. She was queer because, I don't want to, generalize or misclassify her, but, she was queer. And she said to me one day, she said, I am so against desegregation. And I remember looking at her and I said, wait, what? And I said, why would you say that? She said, well, because when we were segregated, we had our own businesses. We had the black dollar circulating in the black community. You have Blackdom and you have Tulsa, you have Black Wall Street. And, it took me a couple years to kind of think critically about what she was trying to tell me. Because at the time, I was just like, wait, are you serious? You really said that? You really are against it? I was like, no. Like, desegregation is awesome. And she said, no. She said, I think that when that happened, it took from us the ability to work with our own people and our own communities and let that dollar circulate. Now, just a few months ago, we all witnessed the humiliation that our community, engaged in over a chicken sandwich at Popeyes. We all witnessed that. We saw the power of the black dollar. And I say it is a humiliation because you had people being stabbed, people being killed. You had people laughing and pointing their finger because people were acting a fool over a chicken sandwich. Yet and still, Popeyes ran out. They ran out of chicken. I mean, like, there was nothing in the U.S. You couldn't get a chicken sandwich. Because, and I'm not going to say only black people was buying it. But within the black community, there was definitely an outrage, over a chicken sandwich. And we saw the power of our dollar. Yet and still, we do not buy clothing. We don't buy various products, designers from our own people. We don't do it. I was talking to this one African British guy. And, about this briefly, he said to me, it's the same thing in the African community. And I forget which country he was from originally, but I know he was African and he had spent quite a bit of time in England. And he had said, it's the same thing with our people. He said, we will buy, the designers that don't like us or won't put us as models in their apparel before we will support our own designers. That's a problem. That is a huge, huge problem. I think a number of years ago, you had Tommy Hilfiger, who had made a comment, I think back when Oprah was doing her show. He said, I don't make my clothes for black people. Yet and still, people bought it. I knew family members that would only buy Tommy Hilfiger. It had to be the Tommy Hilfiger jeans. And so every now and then, we get one or two black faces in apparel, featured in a magazine or an ad or wherever it may be. But that's not enough. That's not enough. And society will stigmatize you if you are a black designer and you do make designs or apparel for black people. They will stigmatize you, or that's too much. Yet and still, they'll take cultural appropriation, right? Now, I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong to have cornrows or braids, whatever you're black. I'm not going to get into that because that's trivial. But I will say that cultural appropriation happens. Individuals like, I think that young lady, she's a teenager named Bad Bunny. She's been accused of that a lot. I'm not saying that she is actually out here doing it. I'm not saying that she's not. Same thing with the Kardashians. I'm not going to say they're doing mess and they're not. They married some black men and had black babies, and as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much as black as you can go, really, if you're not black. But what I am saying is that cultural appropriation happens. You have people out here injecting their butts, their lips, their hips, everything in between, getting tans and getting out here, doing everything they can to look like a light-skinned black woman or sometimes a black man, what have you. But yet and still nobody wants to stand up for the rights of us, really. Or it's one of those things where, I'm just kind of, going with the trend. Well, while you sitting up here spray painting yourself, looking like a damn carrot or whatever, that's what we look like as far as having melanin in our body. But yet and still, we're not told that we're beautiful. So with that being said, and all the issues throughout time we have as a people overcome and challenges that we still face today, why is it that as a people we cannot band together and create opportunities for each other? Support. Why can't we do that? Why is it that we must wait for a handout, whether it be in Hollywood or in music, a law firm? Why is it that we must always be somebody's quota? One of us, two of us, maybe. So people can say, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, or I have a black roommate, or I have a black guy. Why is it that we cannot collaborate and come together as a people like other cultures do, rightfully should do? We're so busy trying to fight each other. We're so busy trying to compete and go against each other in and outside the church that we cannot actually come together and get something done. We look at the leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael and whatnot, and yes, they did great work. But gone are their days where they were here. Yet, the mission remains to still stand up against injustice, inequality, to network and collaborate with each other. And we can still move forward as a people. We can still do it, but we won't. I remember, going back to fashion, Gucci, they made a mask that was kind of like one of those mammy dolls, back in the day where they would make things all like black, like completely the color black, and say it was a black person, and Gucci. They made that and thought it was nothing wrong with it. Yet we buy and idolize their clothing. And we don't hold them accountable for how they treat us or the lack of consideration. I think you had H&M that put a little boy in a green shirt, and I think the shirt said, "The coolest monkey in the jungle." Put an ad out there, and full-blown advertisement, and thought there was nothing wrong with it. Completely disrespected us. And they continue to do so. They don't care. And they get away with it. Let us not be dumb here. It is very clear when something is wrong. You know damn well that you are not supposed to do these things, or it will offend us. Yet and still they did it. And still we go and we buy these shades, these Gucci shades. We go out here and we purchase these designers that openly offend us, thinking that we are doing something in society, looking good, staying with the trend, we on top. Yet they don't give a damn about us or our community. It's crazy. So, we have, the American By Guy podcast is also part of the company By Us. And By Us has, apparel. We have two apparel lines, one called By Us and Company, and the other called By Authority Sportswear. And so, we have our apparel lines in order to increase by representation, or anyone out there that, wants to support the cause, which you're more than welcome to. But we make a legitimate effort to pull people from different backgrounds, body sizes, cultures, in order to show that we're beautiful. You don't have to be black. You don't have to be a minority. You can be anybody, really, that wants to support the cause. But, while we're on the subject of businesses making that effort, you have all these Fortune 500 companies that don't give a damn about you, but yet and still will offend you, or yet and still will ignore the cause and the issue. And many of those same companies right now are applying for the stimulus. I had read an article the other day of a number of small businesses aren't able to get the money, while some of the Fortune 500 companies that have applied have received their funds. We have to do better as a people. I look at advertisements and Instagram and all sorts of different social media platforms, and I go through and I count the likes sometimes on which fitness trainers, girls and guys, how many likes they have. And then I look at the color, where they are. And I look at the support or the lack of support behind black models or black individuals or people of color. Unless you out there really on an Instagram platform showing your body, looking half naked, it's going to be hard for you to kind of sometimes build that following. Easier for others, maybe. And I noticed that when you are white, and I'm just going to be real, a lot of times if you're a white man, especially in the gay community, people idolize it. I don't know why. That's why we have that whole black and brown stripe added to the flag. But also, women too. I look at how many people subscribe to, these black Instagram pages or these Instagram pages that feature people of color. And on average, it always tends to likely be the case where the white guy or girl has a ridiculous amount of likes. Now, I'm not talking about the fans only pages, because that data, that's a whole other beast of another color. We could talk about that another day. But I have found that if you are white and you are in the limelight, not just Hollywood, you tend to get more likes, more of a following. Why is that? We may never know the answer, but what we can do as a people is that we can support each other, and we should start supporting each other. We must do it, and we must not become victimized by society telling us you're too black, you're too extreme, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. Going back to my friend in law school, brilliant, like I said, brilliant mind. But I watched her ask the most profound, thought-provoking questions. And then sometimes, she would get shied away by, she'd ask a question and the whole class would sigh. Majority white. And it was a really deep question. It was really fair. She made a comment, or sometimes professors would even shy away from her. And I'm like, she's a student like everybody else. It's her opinion. It's why you put, why she's here. You say you want your class to be diverse. I would often speak up for her and fight for her. I would get approached in the parking lot or going to class, and somebody would say something like, wow, I can't believe she said that. And they would look at me as if I'm supposed to agree. And I would tell them, this is her right. Her viewpoint is valid. Why are you, uncomfortable because of this? Or if a case came up or the topic of gay rights, there'd be maybe 2 openly gay men in the class and a couple other DL people who I knew were on the B team as bisexual or, dealing with some issues. And when the topics for homosexuality come up, they would all look to me. And I remember one time I said, I'm not going to be the spokesperson for addressing gay rights. There are several other white gay men in this classroom who can speak up. But there was this fear of disbanding from their peers, their white classmates. They would sit there in support of each other while leaving me to speak up or say something to represent the LGBTQ community. And from sitting there, I remember thinking to myself, wow, these guys are gay and they let people know they're gay, but when the opportunity comes to speak up and take a position, they're going to band together with their white classmates instead of siding with how they really feel. And that's how I feel as far as like people of color, black people. We need to band together rather than being, against each other or stopping each other or hating or fighting each other or killing each other. We need to band together, because I damn sure there was no class that they took that said, hey, you must support other white people, even though you may kind of fall into a sub, category, or the masses don't agree. As black people, we need to band together, because when one of us gets attacked, we all get attacked. We are all hurting when we hear about a death of a black person, whether it be at a traffic stop or even jogging with where we are now. I remember asking one of my colleagues, who was also another Cameroonian girl, why do you think that it's mostly African people who I always find in education, and especially higher education? And she told me, I think because we value different things in black Americans. And so my message to us fellow black people is that we need to also value different things, like education, or learning tools in a trade, or how to become a successful business person. We need to band together, because I usually found that people who were from Africa, whatever country they may have been from, were the ones I was in the classroom with. And then when it came down to be a black American, we weren't present. We weren't sitting at the table. So these things need to be talked about. We have got to support each other. From those that have money, from those that don't, everybody in between, we all black. I don't care how dark you are, how light you are. I don't care if you're half, you're quarter. We're black. And we better be damn proud of it. And we got to do better and stop hiding in our churches. We can go there, sure, get encouraged, be encouraged. But we got to get more, because churches don't pay the bills. They'll take your money, ask you to step out there on a love offering and let God kind of do the rest. And I'm not trying to knock churches per se. What I'm saying is that we need a competitive fight in society. And we have got to come together. And if we don't do it, nobody else will.